Okay, in this video we're going to be looking at how we can choose between using cosine, sine or the tan rule to solve each of these questions. Now, questions aren't asking you to basically use one of these. All it is giving you 3 bits of information in which you need to decide which particular ratio you're going to be using. Let's talk about those ratios for a minute though, before we do that. There's an easy way to remember what each of these ratios involve. So let's just talk about them first. Sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse. Cos theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tan theta is opposite over adjacent. Now, it might be difficult to remember all of these formulas, and so there's a little acronym to remember them. So, or so, ka, toa. Okay, so here you have so, which is sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse, ka is cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and toa, tan is opposite over adjacent. SOHCAHTOA. So if you can remember the word basically, SOHCAHTOA, and even write that down, you'll remember each of these formulas. Alright. So you need to be very familiar with those formulas in order to use them to solve for the unknown pronumeral. Let's look at this question here. Now I'll write up the top our formulas. So, opposite over hypotenuse. Ka, adjacent over hypotenuse. Toa, opposite over adjacent. Okay, so we can determine what we might use. So in this question, we have the angle at 46 degrees, the hypotenuse at 13 centimeters, and the adjacent at p centimeters. Now, we need to be able to label and identify what each of these are. So this is the hypotenuse. It might be helpful to do it first so you know what symbol or what formula you're going to use. And this is the adjacent to the angle. So we've got the hypotenuse, the angle, and the adjacent. Which formula up here has the hypotenuse, the angle, and the adjacent? Well, we know that these two have the adjacents and this one has the hypotenuse. So we'll look at these things. We've got theta, degrees, yes. We've got the adjacent, yes. And we've got the hypotenuse, yes. So we know we're going to be using this formula here to solve for P. Cos theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. So we can write cos 46 degrees is the adjacent, which is P, over the hypotenuse, which is 13. We can solve for it. (13) equals P. Put that in our calculator. Cos 46 times 13. And we get a measurement of 9, or P equals 9. Correct to 2 decimal places, 0.3 centimeters, and that's our answer for this question here. If you need to stop at any time and go back over it to check, you can. Alright, let's have a look at this one here. Again, identifying the sides. We've got 2 sides. Note we don't have the hypotenuse labeled. We've got 2 of the other sides, and we've got x. So in relation to x, we can see, in relation to x, that this side is the opposite and this side is the adjacent. And we have theta. So we look up here which formula has the opposite and adjacent together, not these, opposite and adjacent, and theta, we can see that tan theta is the correct ratio to use in this situation. Again, replacing our letters where necessary. Opposite is 4, adjacent is 12, and we have tan x is equal to simplified 1/4. And we know we're going to use shift inverse tan, so we know x is going to be tan to the negative 1, 1/4. So we put that in our calculator, shift tan, brackets 1/4, close brackets, just to make sure we get it right. And we get x equals 14.04 degrees rounded. If we press our special dot, comma, 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 or DMS button, we can also get the minutes and see that it's 14 degrees and 2 minutes. And then it goes into seconds as well. But we can be either's fine as long as you've got the degrees right. Alright, next two. So that we've got it on our screen, let's write our formulas in again. Soccer, or so, sine theta, opposite over hypotenuse. Ka, cos theta, adjacent over hypotenuse. Toa, tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. So we know we're going to use one of these formulas. Let's see. We want to find for x. Identify what we have. Well, here's our angle, theta. We have our opposite, and we have an adjacent to that angle. So we have an opposite to this angle, and we have an adjacent to this angle. And theta, we know this one, it's going to be tan theta is opposite over adjacent. And we know that tan is 60 degrees. The opposite is 12 centimeters over x. And we know a little rule is we can flip these around. X is 12 divided by tan 60 degrees equals 6.93 centimeters, the nearest 2 centimeters. Alright, last one here. We have looking at our triangle, we have an angle. Next to that angle we have this, what is it? Our hypotenuse, because it's opposite our right angle. Okay, not our adjacent's here. Our hypotenuse is always the longest side, please do not forget that. And we have, of course, our opposite, because the angle is opposite here. Okay, it's the side directly opposite our degrees. So looking at that information, theta, opposite, and hypotenuse, well, we know what that is. That's our sine, which is opposite over, that should be a h, shouldn't it? Opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, so we're using our sine theta, which is our opposite over hypotenuse. Our theta is 40 degrees, and our opposite is 7, and our hypotenuse is the pronumeral m. Now we know when m's on the bottom we can swap this, and we have m, which is equal to 7 over sine 40 degrees, and we put that in our calculator. 7 divided by sine 40 degrees, and we get 10.89 centimeters. Okay, and that's it. So the key is to remember when you use each of these formulas, and from this video remember this now new rule SOHCAHTOA.